Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We're using Ext JS components in ReExt applications. My name is Mark Guzmano. I am a sales engineer at Sencha. And in this session, we're going to look at how you can take an existing set of Ext JS components, bring them into the ReExt environment. I'll explain what ReExt is for those of you who don't know. And we'll go through that all with a simple demonstration. So you have the initial project that's in Ext JS, and then the converted project that is in ReExt. A couple of reminders: this webinar is being recorded, so if you need to refer to it later, you will be able to do that and also share it with your colleagues. And we will be doing a question and answer session at the end. So if you have questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar section for questions. And when we finish the demonstration, we'll go ahead and answer those. And if you don't get your questions answered, or if you come up with questions after the webinar is over, feel free to email me. You can see my email address on the current slide, and I will put that email address back up again when we're doing the Q&A session. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So this was the email that went out. Basically, the idea here and the use case is that you are an Ext JS developer. You've been building Ext JS applications. You may have built some custom components in Ext JS, and you're looking for whatever reason to see how you might migrate into the ReEct environment. And in migrating in the ReEct environment, you'd like to take forward your Ext JS knowledge, your Ext JS custom components, and ideally bring them completely over. You don't necessarily want to rewrite them, but you'd like to reuse them within ReExt. So that's the premise. If you haven't used Ext JS, or if some of that's somewhat new, don't worry. I'm going to start by creating an Ext JS application so that we have a set of components that we can use. If you are a veteran of Ext JS, then this simple example you can apply to any of the custom components that you may have built. So I think this will be helpful both for beginners and for experienced Ext JS environments and developers. So this is what we're going to cover in the webinar. First off, I'll just make sure everybody's level set on what ReExt is and how you would acquire it and kind of its position relative to Ext JS. Then we'll go through the process. We'll start out by creating an Ext JS application. The latest version of Ext JS is version 7.9, so I will build a 7.9 application. I will build it using Sencha command, our command line tool. I will just say up front that if you have chosen to use Sencha Architect, or if you're using our latest product that we have for doing visual development called Rapid Ext JS, they will equally apply. I just want to make sure that we have a starter Ext JS application. We'll also then create a starter ReExt application, so you can kind of see the process of how you create one. That starter ReExt application will have a simple template project in it. We'll remove that template project or the template view, and we'll go ahead and migrate one of the views that's in the Ext JS application that I generate over to ReExt. We'll do the work we have to do to be able to point to that component within ReExt, and then we'll modify the ReExt application to use that Ext JS component as a ReExt component. So that's the flow that we're going to go through in this session. So first off, what is ReExt? ReExt is an NPM node package manager based library. It's a React library. We put it out It's coming up on a year, I guess, but it's been out for a little while now. It's had some really good reception from customers, especially customers who have done Ext JS in the past. It is a very simple component. It just has 5 props and any event props that you would use in Ext JS. You can see an example of a ReExt button that you would implement in your React application. The key prop is the X type prop. So if you're trying to create a button, it would be X type button. If you're trying to create a grid, X type grid. And then for those X types, any config information, like for example, a button can have a text property, a button can have a width property, you would put that in the config prop. And then any events that you want to handle, the events that are in Ext JS, for example, the click event, would be an on click within ReExt. You utilize the Ext JS documentation to understand what X types exist, what configs apply to those particular X types, and what events are a part of that particular X type. You can access this trial for ReExt in the NPM repo. I'll give you a quick overview of that. You can also go to the products page for ReExt under sencha.com to get more details. If you were to go to the NPM package in the public NPM environment, you can see that the component is called app Sencha/ReExt. We are now at version 1.1. There are instructions on here on how you generate a ReExt application, how you acquire the Ext JS environment that supports ReExt, how you create production applications, etc. So this is not going to be a fundamental tutorial on ReExt. I will create a ReExt application, but if you have any questions about ReExt and how it applies or want to understand how to get started, I'd be happy to answer those in the Q&A session or take that on after the webinar. So that's what ReExt is. It's essentially an ability to use the Ext JS components within the React environment. Okay. Presumably people know what Ext JS is. Ext JS is the flagship framework from Sencha. It allows you to build data-centric web applications. It's been around for a while, so it's very mature, very stable, very, very performant. As I said, it's very data-centric. So a lot of the components that are in Ext JS are oriented towards business data, grids and trees and anything related to creating forms, etc. So as I said, over time, there have been a lot of Ext JS applications created, and we're going to create another one. We're going to create another one using the Sencha command, and it's usually spelled CMD, so the Sencha command application. And in this case, we're going to do a Sencha generate app. The other parameters are where my SDK is pointing to, and you can see I'm pointing to Ext 790 on my hard drive. I'm going to generate a classic toolkit application. I'm going to call it classic app, and I'm going to create the folder for it as classic app. So probably the easiest thing to do is for me to just copy this. So that's what I'll do. And I will go ahead to a command line here and paste it in and go ahead and hit enter. So there's Sencha command running. Again, version 7.9. What happens with the app generate is the application that I've asked for is being created. I've asked for a classic toolkit application. There is a default template that is being used here to generate a starter application so that I can, use at least something from the beginning. And once this all generates, as you can see, I'm left to be able to go ahead and start the application. Typically with Sencha command, I'll do Sencha app watch. This will start the project. And first thing I got to do is move into the folder that was created. So that was the classic app folder. Let me clear this out and then go ahead and start Sencha app watch. So Sencha app watch will generate a development server for serving the application by default at port 1841. So once this thing is all completed, I could simply go over to my browser window and do localhost 1841. And there's my starter application. So again, it's a classic application. It's got a menu on the left-hand side, several tabs. About the only one that has anything interesting is this first tab. And what this is, it's a grid, probably the most popular component in the Ext JS framework. And this particular grid uses a store, and that store uses a model. And in this particular case, the store feeds the data just from a list. But in a real world application, you would probably call a server, retrieve the data, and then populate the grid. So that's the application that I'm saying we've been writing, or as a good starting point that I would want to convert to ReExt. So let's just dive in a little more to that application. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, which is the code editor that I use to edit projects in my environment. And as you can see here, I have my classic app folder. Everything is started with app.js. App.js basically says start this particular component. All the application logic is in the app folder. And in particular, all the UI elements are in the view under the app folder. And then under main, you can see we've got a couple of views. We've got the main view. This is the view that shows the tab panel on the left-hand side. And then the first tab is this list view. So this list view is that list of personnel items. And you can see it's an ext define. It extends a grid panel. This statement right here says, hey, this particular grid panel requires another ExtJS class, and that class is the store. So it's got a pretty consistent naming convention. So classic app is the app folder. Store is the folder where the personnel JavaScript file, and this represents my store, which is a key ExtJS object to be able to retrieve data from a server. In this particular case, as I mentioned, we're not retrieving data from a server. We're using a proxy that is a memory proxy, getting data in line here. But in a real application, this would be an Ajax proxy, which would go to a server, retrieve the data, and bring it back. This particular store requires a model. That model is the description of the data. Again, consistent naming. Classic app model is app model. Here's the personnel model. So it describes the fields that are coming back that the store will use. And then finally, this model extends from a base model. So classic app.model.base, and that's that file right there. So all those files and all those dependencies are what I built into my ExtJS application. So the use case I want to talk about is, let's just say this list.js is a complicated custom grid. I've done a lot of work, added some things specific to my environment. I've created my own custom store and those models, and I want all of that to be reusable within a React application that I write without having to change anything. So that's the premise that we're going to go through. So step one is done. We've got the application created, the Ext JS application created. Let's move on to step 2, and that is to create the ReExt application that we're going to use to migrate to. So these set of steps I actually copied from the NPM package documentation. So if you look at this NPM package documentation, there's a table of contents here, and there is a quick start, number 3 here, that shows me how to generate an application and get one up and running with a very simple template right away. So all of these commands here are command line commands. So npm create Vite. Vite is the tool that is used most typically in the React world to generate an application. So Vite is equivalent to Sencha command. It is the tool to generate and run your application. So I'm going to do an npm create Vite. I'm going to use the latest version of Vite. I'm going to call my application something, and then I'm going to use just a template that comes with Vite for React. Then I'll cd into that folder. I will install the ReExt component. So npm install app Sencha ReExt latest, whatever the latest component is. So this is a very natural way to install npm packages into React. I'm going to copy 3 files into my project just to give me a nice starter application, and then I'm going to run the Vite application, which will show me the application itself. So what's on this slide here is essentially what is on that page, except I just gave it a different name. Reuse in ReExt is the name of the project I want to create. So again, I'm going to come over here, copy these commands, come back over to my folder here, or my terminal window, and back up one level. And then I'm going to just paste those commands in here. So they'll run sequentially. So it'll first create a Vite project. It'll then cd into that project. It'll install ReExt. It will then start the web server. And this is the result. This actually popped up on one of my other windows. So this is the starter application that is created. Very plain, not much to it, but there's enough here to give you an idea of how to use ReExt in the environment. So what do we have here? We've got just a little logo up here. It tells me that I'm using the latest version of ReExt, using the latest version of React, 7.9 of Ext JS, using the classic toolkit and the classic theme. So all of those can be modified. I also just have a button here. This button just changes from horizontal to vertical alignment. I have a grid. Looks very similar to the grid I just showed you, but this is actually a ReExt grid, a natural ReExt grid. And then if I click on any one of these items, I can handle the select event to copy things to this set of display fields. So let's kind of look under the covers to see how that application is built. So let's go back to my command window. Let me Control-C out of this and run VS Code in this folder. So this is the ReExt application. So it is an NPM-based application. So you have a package.json. The package.json, among other things, includes the latest version of ReExt. It includes some other dependencies that the Vite create started. By the way, these little numbers here, I've got a VS Code plugin that tells me if what I have installed in the package.json is the latest version. So I'm close, but this was all generated from Vite, so I'm just going to leave it as is. We've got index.html here that essentially gets things started. And the way things start in React is you give a div with an ID of root to index.html. And then here, it starts some JavaScript code. So in source main.js. Let's go ahead and follow that path. Here's source main.js. That was one of the files that I copied over. So if we take a look at these set of steps, that was one of the files that got copied. So this is a specific implementation that already includes the things you need for ReExt. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So if we come back here, let's maximize this. What things are different from just the standard Vite generation? Well, this line is different. This is bringing in several things from the ReExt component. Fill is just a function that helps the application fill up the screen, go full screen in the browser. So that's just a nice little utility. ReExt provider is really the first interaction with the ReExt environment. And in React, a provider is something that you put globally in your project that will be available to everything in your project. So you'll notice here I have the ReExt provider wrapping the app, which is the root application view. And the ReExt provider has a few things that we should note. The first one is this ReExt data. So ReExt data says, tell me everything about the environment so I know how to generate things relative to Ext JS. You can see here SDK version, toolkit, theme. Line 10 here are all of the premium packages that you could actually use in Ext JS. So right now they're all set to false. RTL is whether you want to use a right to left language, currently set to false. Locale, currently set to English, could be whatever language you're using. Whether I want to turn on debugging support. And then this one is interesting. These right here, well, actually these two, tell ReExt where to get the SDK. And right now it's getting it remotely. So if I bring up this, go back to my browser here, hit F12 and bring up the network tab and reload this. Let me actually load everything. So I'll go to all. Oh, I don't have this started. So since I stopped it, I'm going to go ahead and bring up within VS Code and inside the VS Code terminal window. The way I started Vite was np. It was this line right here. I'll just actually copy it. npx Vite open. This is kind of like Sencha App Watch, very similar. So npx Vite -- open. So I'll go ahead and do npm Vite -- open. And what you will notice, I have to type it right, npx. There we go. And so now you can see I am running. I have the Vite server running. And if you look at the files that are being brought in, the Ext JS files are being brought in from a CDN. So remote means get the files remotely from CDN. The reason we did that is we wanted you to have a very, very quick initial experience with ReExt. So we provided the trial, and you can see there's a watermark here. We provided the trial of 7.9 on a CDN, and so you can get started very quickly. And you'll also notice up here that this says remote. So this is the way you use it for trial. If you want to create a production version of your application, there are instructions in our documentation on how to acquire a production version of the SDK, how to bring that locally into your project so that you can change this value for location from remote to local. And then you'll be able to use a local licensed version of Ext JS. So we're not going to change any of that, but I just want to give you a little background there. So that all this object is being fed into the ReExt provider. We have an optional splash screen, so I don't know if you noticed that, but if I go back over here to run the application, let me do this one more time here, just so it pops it up. And very quickly, there's a little splash screen. You can turn that off. So if I go over here and just say splash false, and then rerun this, go ahead and rerun it again, you're not seeing that flash. It's immediately loaded. So a couple parameters there. All those parameters are documented in the NPM package README and also in the documentation on Sencha.com. But we now have a starter application. What we want to do, though, is now use that Ext JS component that's in the Sencha command generated application, that list component, that custom component, in our ReExt application. So I'm going to go over to the documentation for ReExt and come down here and talk about how you would do what I'm about to show you. So the data component, that thing that's in main.jsx, where we had SDK version, toolkit, etc., also has two other parameters, a custom folder parameter and a custom files parameter. The custom folder parameter is a string, which is a path in the public folder where you want to put custom ExtJS things, being views or stores or models, all the things that we might want to load into ReExt to be able to use them. And then custom files is an array of strings of the names of the custom ExtJS component files that we want to load. So custom folder, custom files is what we're going to use when we get started doing a conversion. So with that, let's go back to the slides and let's talk about actually doing that quote unquote migration. So to migrate these components from ExtJS to ReExt is a copy. We take the app folder that was the Sencha command app folder that was generated from Sencha command. We're going to copy that to the ReExt public folder. We're literally going to take the files that are in Sencha command and bring them into the ReExt project. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. So on the right-hand side here, I'm going to put my ReExt project, and on the left-hand side, I'm going to bring in my ExtJS project. So we'll put that on the left-hand side. So left-hand side is the ExtJS project. Right-hand side is the ReExt project that I want to migrate to. I want to take this app folder and I want to bring it to the public folder of my ReExt project. So I'm just going to drag and drop. So now I've taken my whole app structure of my ExtJS application and brought it into ReExt. Now there's a few differences in how I'm going to use my components from ExtJS to ReExt. When I was an ExtJS application, everything about the application was ExtJS. So there was a bootstrap, there was an app.js that got things kicked off. You notice I didn't copy that app.js, right? Because React is controlling the application now, not ExtJS. So I don't need the app.js. There are also some things in here that have to do with the application running in ExtJS, this application file, and maybe a few other things. What I really care about is what's in the view, what's in the store, and what's in the model folders. And so I could probably delete these, but it was just as easy just to bring everything over. And I just wanted to let you know what things we're going to use and what we're not going to use. And remember, I'm using this file right here. This is my list ExtJS component. It requires this store file, and that store file requires this model file. That model file requires this base file. So there are 4 files that I need. In ExtJS, the way all that is brought into your project is with this requires keyword. So there is some bundling that's going on with Sencha command. we're not using Sencha command when we go to ReExt. So you'll see what we have to do to enable this within our ReExt project. So we've done the copy. We're going to go to the next step. So the next step involves two things: modifying the main.jsx so that the ReExt data object contains the custom files and custom folders properties. And then we want to use that component, so I have a little simple modified app.js. So let's go to the first step here. This first step is to modify main.js to add the custom folder and custom files. So if I go ahead and kind of look at my project here, under the public folder, I have an app folder. So that becomes the name of the custom, the value of the custom folder prop. So where in the public folder are your custom ExtJS components? So custom folder app points to here. And then everything else is relative to that app folder. And you'll notice that the order of these is in the reverse order of what I originally showed you, right? We have the list, which uses the store, which uses the model, which uses the base model. Those are all a dependency. So we have to load the files in the dependent order. So base doesn't have any dependencies. Personnel depends on base. This personnel in the store folder depends on the model. And then this list depends on the store. Now, this is just a rudimentary way to get these files into your project. You could use bundlers. You could take advantage of Sencha command. We just wanted to give you a basic way to bring in your ExtJS components. We don't want to require you to do anything. You can do this as simply or as complexly as you want. And so we're just going to do this simple way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two definitions, just copy them right out of the file. I'm going to go back to my ReExt project, go back to my main.jsx and add these two objects to my ReExt data, these two properties to my ReExt data object. I can add them to the top. Doesn't really matter where I add them. I just have to have them in this particular ReExt data object. So this ReExt data object now has custom folder and custom files. It has the files that I have put into my app folder in the correct order. And then this ReExt data object is going to be loaded into the ReExt provider. So step one is done. If I run this application, it doesn't look any different, right? I'm not using the components that I have brought into my ReExt project. If I look at this app.jsx page, let me do that. Here it is right here. So you'll notice this sample application uses several ReExt components. So it imports ReExt. It then uses the ReExt X type equals logo. X type equals logo is this thing up here. We just kind of provided that as a way for you to tell what you're running, just a little utility component. But then all the other things that are on here, there's a ReExt button. That button has a config. It has a click event or a tap event, depending on if you're using the classic toolkit or the modern toolkit. It also has a ReExt grid. This ReExt grid has a columns config and a store config kind of built into it. Again, just a very simple example to get you started. But I'm using the base grid here. I'm not using that custom list that I created and customized yet in this app.js file. So to do that, I'm going to go to the next slide here and take a look at a very simple version, a replacement version of app.js. And actually, let me just copy this into the project. So back to this. I'm going to go ahead and delete everything out of app.js and bring this in, and let's just take a look at what it's doing here. So again, we're using ReExt, so we import the ReExt component. We're using that logo component, but now we're using a ReExt component that's using an X type that is not part of Ext JS. Main list is just something custom, right? What is main list? Main list is the X type of the component that I want to bring in under app view main list.js. It's the X type. So I have a custom ExtJS component. I'm going to have it loaded. I'm going to use that X type, and that X type handles everything. It handles the store, it handles the title, it handles all the columns, any listeners. So my code is very clean here, right? Only thing I had to add was a style so that it showed up as a height of 300. But otherwise, this is all I need to be able to use that ExtJS component from within ReExt. So, given all that, let's restart this thing. And you'll notice, I mean, that looks very similar, but this component, let me make a change here. This thing says personnel. Well, let me put this to the side. Put this to the side. Close this off. Let me go ahead and go into list.js and change this, and you'll notice that, yeah, indeed, I just changed the ExtJS component, and now my React environment has reflected that change. And start interacting with this React component just like any other React component that I might want to build, but I have the full functionality of what I built as a custom ExtJS component. I don't have to rewrite it. I don't have to adapt it. All I have to do is copy it in, make sure I import or make sure I load the correct dependencies, and then I can use that component just like any other ReExt component. That line right there is what brought that entire component, its store, its models, everything in. Now, you admittedly might have a more complex component, but the principles are exactly the same. Get everything into custom folder and custom files, or come up with a way to bring your ExtJS JavaScript into ReExt, make sure it's loaded, and then any X type, any custom X type is usable within React. So that's what I wanted to show you. That's what I want you to encourage. I want to encourage you to try. We have examples. We have documentation that talks about this. If you go back to the NPM package page, which this logo this logo component, by the way, gives you an easy way to get back to that. Just click on that link right there. It'll bring you right back to the package page. And we have a set of examples that are built, again, with 7.9, but a lot more comprehensive. So these examples use pretty much all the major components that are in ExtJS. We've got a tab panel up here. This particular page has a big data grid, it has a visualization, it has charting, it has a pivot table. This ext mail component is very similar to the demo I just gave you. You'll notice that this is a custom grid, and that custom grid happens to be called messages grid. Exact same concept. This was brought in with custom folders, custom files, and then it's now usable within ext. We have examples of calendars, D3. You can use the border layout capabilities of ExtJS. Basically, you have the full fidelity of ExtJS within React. You can change what theme you're using. Right now, I'm using the classic theme. You can use any of the themes that exist within ExtJS. You can even use your own custom theme. If you've created a custom theme, that can also be brought in to the ReExt environment. The way you would do that is there's documentation on how you would install that custom theme, but then if you go to main.jsx, one of these properties is the name of the theme. So if your theme was called My Theme, you would change line 13 to say My Theme instead of Classic. All right. So that's really where we are in terms of allowing you to migrate your Ext JS applications, your custom components into ReExt. Now the question is how, maybe you need to upgrade your Ext JS application and get it to version 7. ReExt works in version 7, 7X. You may want to get to version 7.9 since it's the latest version. I just wanted to call out that we have a tool to allow you to upgrade your Ext JS applications to the latest version or any version you want. It's called the Sencha Upgrade Advisor. It's a free tool. It allows you to convert a Sencha command generated application like I just showed you, a Sencha architect application if you happen to build your application with architect. So any and all of those things can be used. The nice thing about it is you run it against your source code. It'll tell you what issues it finds. Maybe things have been deprecated or added. It'll even give you the ability, if it can do it, to make the changes through the tool. So very nice tool, easy to get. I would recommend, generating it against version 7.9 to see how close you are to actually getting to the latest version. You can also get a trial version of 7.9 if you don't already have it. We have a 30-day free trial, completely documented. You can use the trial version that we have on the CDN to try ReExt. So there's no obstacle in getting you started. Ultimately, you're going to want to be able to get the production version. You're going to want to be able to have support through our support portal, etc. You also might want to have access to community support. Community support for Sencha, both Ext JS and ReExt, are done through our Discord server. The Discord server can be joined. Probably the easiest way is to talk to your sales rep. They'll get you access to it. All the MVPs hang out there. Sencha developers are out there. There are numerous categories, a lot of good information. So I'd highly encourage you to access and take a look at the Discord server if you haven't already. So with that, I'd like to have a little time available for questions and answers. Like I said, we'll take the questions that might be typed in right now into the GoToWebinar console. If there are questions you have after and you'd like to get a hold of me, again, my email address is on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to do that or talk to your sales rep, which could get us involved. I'd be happy to walk through this with you to maybe discuss how you would apply ReExt to your environment. Take a look at maybe taking one of your simple components and migrating it. Be happy to do any and all of those. But for now, let's go ahead and see if there are any questions that we have, and we'll go ahead and answer them.
Right. Thank you, Mark. My name is Raj. I'm Marketing Manager, Sencha. Now let's move on to the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. We will address as many we can. Here's the first question, Mark.
Yes.
For instance, if my grid is traditional Ext and I select a record, how can I make it populate a React component?
Go ahead, repeat that one more time. I want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Yeah, for instance, my grid is traditional Ext.
Yep.
And I select a record, how can I make it populate a React component?
Yes, well, again, if you're following the best practices of Ext JS, your custom grid component would be its own component. It's probably inheriting our base grid component. You're probably using ancillary files to supplement it. So step one would be to get all those files into ReExt the way I just showed you. Once you have your component into ReExt, all the facilities of React are at your disposal. So for example, if you have some reactive or variable-based aspects to your grid, let's say you do dynamic columns or you want to change the title based on something else happening, you can actually use all of the React capabilities, variables within JSX, all of those things to complete or enhance your application. So the beauty of what we have here is that you bring all of your functionality in initially, but then you live and work in the best practices world of React. So React, just as a library, doesn't give you any components at all, let alone highly performant, stable data components. So, bringing in this environment gives you the best of both. If you're moving to React, you have that React ecosystem, but then you also have your comprehensive base components from Ext JS and any custom components, grid or otherwise, that you bring in. So if there's something specific and whoever asked that question that maybe I didn't answer, feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to drill down further.
That's great, thank you. The second question, can I reuse ReExt components with both modern and classic toolkits?
Yes. My entire demonstration here was with the classic toolkit, just because I chose classic. We have an absolutely 100% full implementation for modern as well. So I could have just as easily done this entire presentation with modern, created a modern Sencha command application, brought it in. It's just one of the variables in that ReExt data that says modern versus classic. So both toolkits are available, both toolkits work. So yes, you absolutely could use the modern toolkit instead of classic if you choose to.
That's great, thank you. Are there any specific considerations if I use Sencha Architect instead of Sencha CMD?
Good question. The example that I just showed you, I just chose to use the simplest example, which is generating using Sencha command. Sencha Architect is our visual design tool that uses Sencha command under the covers, but it has a metadata layer to it that keeps track of the changes that you're doing within Sencha Architect. So you're going to need to bring the files that are Ext JS files out of Sencha Architect in some fashion so that you can bring them into ReExt. Probably the easiest way to do that is with the newest tool that we've announced, which is the Rapid Ext JS tool. Rapid Ext JS is a Visual Studio Code extension that we built that gives you visual design capabilities. So there's a lot of analogies to what Rapid Ext JS is doing and what Architect is doing. It's kind of the next iteration. And in the latest release, we added the capability of converting an Architect project to a Rapid Ext JS project. And when you do that, you remove the metadata issues. You have your project in a folder just like with Sencha command, and then you can take all of your custom components and bring them into ReExt if you'd like to. You can also just continue to move forward building with Rapid Ext JS. We have a trial of that if you'd want to take a look at that as well. But yeah, good question. One other thing I'll just note is that Rapid Ext JS uses an NPM-based tool called Ext. Ext is a tool that allows us to use NPM terminology when we're creating an application, and that uses Sencha command under the covers. So even though what gets converted is an Ext application, you ultimately have a Sencha command application. And again, you'll have a set of files just like what I showed you with the Sencha command application that you could copy into your ReExt project.
Great. Mark, this is a question follow-up to the very first question.
Yeah.
If you're using a traditional Ext JS grid, want to pass selected state into ReExt component, what you should use typically, a state management pattern or event bridging?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So once you're in the world of React, state management is key. So there's local state management, there's use state, there are global state management capabilities, there's use context, there's Redux, there's recoil, there's all sorts of state management solutions. I mean, one of the things about React is you're gonna get like tied up with all the potential decisions you can make. The beauty of it is whatever state management solution you choose, it will work with any ReExt components that you have on your page. So there is no difference in how you would use state, whether you're just doing it on a normal grid that you may have built by hand, or the ReExt grid. So all state management will work, just depending on what you've chosen. And if there's some very specific questions with the state management environment or library that you've chosen, again, send me an email and we can talk about that. The examples that we tend to use, we just use the state management capabilities that are out of the box with React, which is use context and the reducer functionality. Seems to work pretty well, but there are people who like different state management libraries, and again, that's your choice. Choice is a big thing in the React ecosystem.
That's awesome. So again, the follow-up question to that, are there any options like, can we use global store or view model binding?
Yep.
Or even
yes.
matching?
Yep. Whatever your particular state management solution is, it will work with ReExt.
Awesome. That's the wrap for the day. Thank you for joining us and for your time. We hope you found it valuable and informative.
Yes, and again, feel free to sign up for our Discord server. Send me an email if you have questions. This should be available as a recording shortly. And we look forward to the next time we have another webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.